Hello and welcome to this team training video on including everyone. You will have children or young people in your church who have additional needs. What we mean by this is that they may need a bit of extra help to help them join in with what's going on around them. The term additional needs covers a huge range of conditions. They may be severe or obvious, like a life-limiting condition or a learning disability. They may be less obvious or not even considered an additional need, like someone who's very shy. They will include things like autism and ADHD, and children or young people whose first language isn't English, or who have mental health problems, or who have experienced trauma may also have additional needs. Some additional needs require specialist help or equipment. Some additional needs have a diagnosis and some don't, and some are temporary and some are lifelong. If you have a child, a young person with additional needs in your Sunday group, your leader will be able to help you know how to support them best. But in this video, we're going to be looking at some principles and practical ideas to help you know how to support them well. First of all, 3 big ideas. The first is that church is the place where we want everyone to be welcome. We want to be as inclusive as possible. Now, that's not always simple. To care for someone well, we may need to take time to get to know them, and we need to be prepared to adapt what we do in order to include them. Sometimes it can feel difficult to know how to include everybody well, but often it's just simple changes that don't take much time that make all the difference. There's lots we can do to include everyone and to help everyone connect with God. The second thing we need to know is that every child and young person is different and has different needs and abilities, not just those with additional needs. Our aim is for everyone to join in well as they can with what we're doing. And very often that means adding ways to do it, more ways to do the same thing. So we might have more ways to share the Bible with children. We might have more ways to worship, more ways to access a game, or more ways to pray. And the wonderful thing about that is then it's easier for everyone to join in. And the third big idea is that God wants to and can connect with every child and young person, regardless of their needs. It's really important that we learn about God, but it's more important that we connect with him and have a relationship with him. And God can connect with all children and young people. It's just like a parent or a carer can adapt their communication to whoever they're talking to, whether that's a child, whether that's a baby, whether it's someone in the middle of a tantrum, whether it's someone who needs a bit of comfort, encouragement. So God, who, as we know from Psalm 139, made each of us and knows us all intimately, can and will adapt his communication to the way that works for each one of us best. The next thing we're going to think about is 3 practical steps to be prepared. The first is to get to know the child or young person with additional needs. You may already have that information, or you can use something like an About Me form, which just contains and gathers a lot of information to help you adapt what you do. For example, what helps this child or young person join in well? Do they need equipment or particular support? What are things we can do? We also need to know what makes it hard for them to join in, whether that's the environment or their nature or their additional need. What happens if they have a meltdown or don't join in? What strategies might help? Do they have any medical needs, for example, carrying an EpiPen? And really importantly, what are the things everybody on team needs to know when that child or young person is in the session? For example, that they have a latex allergy, or they find loud noises very distressing, or they don't make eye contact but really do want to join in. Then secondly, we can help that child or young person be as prepared as we can. If a child or young person is new, they might really value a visit to your church or the room the group will take place in ahead of time, so that they are familiar with it. You can also use social stories to help children or young people know what to expect and what will be expected of them. Many children and young people benefit from knowing about things in advance. So could you get information to them via their parent or carer about the content of the session, for example? Visual timetables help everyone know what's coming next. And for some children or young people, change is very difficult. So if you need to make some changes, let them know as much as you can in advance. The third thing is to think about your session. What changes could you make to make it as accessible as possible? Does anyone there need extra support? Would that be a one-to-one or just somebody to keep an eye on them? Will they be able to tell you what they need? Not everyone finds communication easy or chooses to communicate verbally. A whiteboard and pen can enable those children to draw or write. Some children would like to use picture cards to give information or choices. Some children may have food allergies. Just check that they can eat the snacks you've got prepared. Some children find writing hard and may like to have a scribe, who could be another child or young person. The next thing to think about is there anything about the room that might make it hard for children? Some children and young people find too much noise or particular sorts of lights or even strong smells distressing or painful. What could you do to lessen the impact of that? For example, offering ear defenders to a child or young person who finds the noise distressing. If somebody's got a visual hearing impairment or has mobility problems, how will the session work for them? What changes could you make to ensure that they're included? Some children and young people benefit from having a safe space if they're overwhelmed or need a bit of time out. Could you create one? Maybe make a den out of a pop-up tent and a few cushions to make it cozy. Some children and young people find concentrating really hard or need to keep moving. Could you build in movement breaks into your session or make sure that you change the activities frequently? Some children or young people find fiddle toys or sitting on a gym ball really helps them settle and concentrate. You may find that if you offer extra equipment like this to some children, others may say, can I have it? Can I use it? In which case, if you've got extras, you can definitely let anybody use it who'd like to. If you don't, you can just explain it by saying something like, just like I need glasses to see well, Tyler needs this ball to help him listen well to the story. And finally, 3 ideas to help everyone engage with the programme. Firstly, sharing the Bible. If we just hear a Bible story, it can be hard to process it. So think about how you could share it. Could you act it out together? Could you use a video? Could you build it with Lego? Could you stop and start asking questions? Could you retell it together? If you're using a Bible, there are lots of different sorts of Bibles for different needs. The Bible Society has an accessible New Testament written specifically for readers with dyslexia. There are cartoon Bibles, manga Bibles, storybook Bibles. There are Bible apps where you can increase the size of the font very easily. You can use videos with subtitles. And as you tell the story and explore it together, how can you engage everyone's senses? Use pictures and props to help them understand the story better. You could have a big warm blanket for them to cuddle in to understand what God's love feels like. You could pass around hard nails as they listen to the story of the crucifixion. You can use their senses of taste and smell to help them engage with the story. What about tasting the bread and smelling the fish as Jesus shares with 5,000 people? You can use a game like hide and seek to introduce the idea of the lost coin. And then we're going to think about how can we help everyone access worship. Singing songs you don't know very well is hard. If you have a screen, you can put the words on there in a big font for people to read as they go. You can use actions or Makaton to add to your worship songs. So children and young people are worshipping not just with their mouths, but with their whole bodies. You could pick a list of songs you're going to use regularly in your children or young people's groups so they get an opportunity really to get to know them. You could create a Spotify playlist from those and send it home so families could play them and get to know them together. If children or young people don't sing or don't want to sing, how can they join in? Could they use flags or dance or create artworks while others worship? Could you use percussion instruments like shakers or muted drums? Could they be in charge of the playlist or the tech? And finally, how can we help everyone pray? If the group is praying together, think about how you might help children or young people who don't talk out loud or who are very shy or have a learning disability. What might help them join in? If you're using the chat and catch prayer we talk about at Parenting for Faith, think about the space you're using. Where could they go so they won't be distracted? What might help them settle? Ear defenders might be helpful, or background music. Some children or young people might find the idea of talking to God in their heads strange. So could they draw or write what they want to chat to God about? Could an adult help with the words they want to say? Or could they whisper into their hands or a cushion the things they want to chat to God about? Some children or young people may say they struggle to hear or catch from God. You can reassure them that just as sometimes we just sit with someone we love and don't use any words, we can just sit with God. He doesn't need our words to understand what we need or want to say. So that's it. 3 big ideas, 3 practical steps to be prepared, and 3 ways to help all children and young people be included in our Sunday groups.